gentlemen, welcome to today's episode of Superwomen. We are very excited. This is the third episode that we are hosting as Ban Ki-moon Center. And I'm privileged today to welcome with us the absolutely amazing Kristina Lunz. It is a true pleasure to have you on board, Kristina, for today. And yet, to contextualize what we're doing in the Superwomen series, I want to tell our listeners and viewers that this is part of the effort that we undertake as Ban Ki-moon Center to bring the stories of stellar changemakers out to all of you. I had the privilege over the past couple of years to meet changemakers, revolutionaries, rebels of sorts. And sometimes I was wondering, why are their stories not told more often? And I also think that being in that position of hearing them and meeting them, I think their stories should be told far wider and should be available and accessible to all of you. Hence, today, we have another superwoman with us, Kristina. And as you know from previous episodes, if you have tuned in already, there is a certain routine that we are starting our session with. And it is the Alicia Keys song called Superwoman. So allow me to read it to you. I won't sing. Everywhere I'm turning, nothing seems complete. I stand up and I'm searching for the better part of me. I hang my head from sorrow, state of humanity. I wear it on my shoulders, gotta find the strength in me. I am a superwoman, yes I am, yes she is. Even when I'm a mess, I still put on my vest with an S on my chest. Oh yes, I am a superwoman. For all the mothers fighting for better days to come, and all my women sitting here trying to come home before the sun, and all my sisters coming together, say yes I will, yes I can. I am a superwoman, yes I am, yes she is. Even when I'm a mess, I still put on my vest with an S on my chest. Oh yes, I am. So thank you, Alicia Keys, for that amazing text. And Kristina, you definitely are a superwoman. I mean, what a role model are you? I'm a total fan for ages now, and I have followed you on your Insta and on your Twitter, and of course also your website and the website of the center that you co-founded. You're the co-executive director of the Center for Feminist Foreign Policy. You're an activist, you are a champion for equality, I really have to say that. And of course, the world recognized that. And you have been decorated with many awards already, Forbes 30 under 30 in Europe. You are also a Vordenker Jahrgang 2020, just a pioneer thinker, just recently awarded that. You are also a young leader of Atlantikbrücke, Ashoka Fellow, Gates Foundation goalkeeper, award-winning human rights advocate. You're a keynote speaker, moderator, writer, campaigns consultant, and apart from all of that, an amazing human being. You're advising the foreign ministry, and you have definitely the goal of increasing security of people all across the globe, worldwide, through more feminist foreign policy. You studied in Oxford, in London, and in Stanford. But I want to hear from you, obviously, Kristina, as you are one of the activists that I totally look up to. Tell me about the stories that the others should know. What were your stepping stones in your private trajectory to get where you are today?
First of all, thank you. What a shower of love. Thank you so much for all these kind words. I really appreciate them. They make me a little bit verlegen, as we'd say in German. So I guess the stepping stones on my path were quite often other people that inspired me, and people who took my hand in moments when I thought I did not have the power and the strength inside me. And when I questioned myself, there were very often other people who said, Kristina, that's rubbish. You are able to do this. You are able to achieve this. And we know it. And very often in the past, people around me believed more in myself than I did. And that's a huge privilege, having such people in your life. And it's especially someone like Scilla Elworthy. Scilla is my mentor, friend and mentor. Scilla is a 3 times Nobel Peace Prize nominee, and Scilla founded organizations including Peace Direct on localized peace building, but also Oxford Research Group on nuclear disarmament. Silla, who's roughly 40 years older than me, she has passed on so much knowledge and inspiration and wisdom, I guess, in a way. And I've really flourished on that. And I wouldn't be today where I am had I not met her.
This is really true, I guess. I have heard that in several of your statements in the podcast, that she had a crucial, decisive role in your life. Can you maybe tell our viewers what it was, what the story was with Silla?
So I met when I was studying in the UK in Oxford. So my story also a little bit is like the working class girl from the village who ended up in Oxford. So when I did end up in Oxford, I most of the time was really intimidated by everything around me. And then one evening I went to this event, this book launch by this lady who I didn't know before. So I was there and I was listening to her, and not only is kind of the knowledge and the experience she has and the wisdom and the expertise like incredible, but she was standing there speaking like from her heart and with like this incredible kindness and warmth that I immediately felt attracted to her. And once she finished, like many people try to talk to her, right? You know how it is. They're like these incredible people, everyone just wants like a second from them. So I also cute. I lined up and waited for my 2 seconds to introduce myself, and she was listening, and she even gave me her email address. She was so kind, and even when I did send her an email, she even replied, which of course and understandably often doesn't happen with people who are very busy, because many people try to get their time and there's just like 24 hours in their life, so they can't respond to all the emails. But she did respond, like one sentence or something, and I was happy. But then I guess a couple of weeks later, I found out through someone I know who knows someone that she was looking for someone who would help her with kind of research, but also PA work. So I didn't send an application letter, but more like a love letter, and told her how much I admire her and that she like means so much to me, like what she has done in her life. So she offered a Skype call, and that's where it started. And then she offered that I could work once a week for her. She lives near Oxford in the countryside. So I took very early in the mornings the bus from Oxford and spent an hour on the bus, like to get to this junction somewhere literally in the middle of nowhere, where she would then come with her little car to pick me up and drive me to the village where she lives.
Yes.
And then we spent the day together, and I worked for her and we spoke, and it's just so inspiring, like her views. She's also very spiritual in a way, and she combines knowledge that to me up to that point was like not part of my life, and she taught me so much about inner work, and how only if we sorted our kind of mental life and the inner struggles, how only then we can be effective in what we're doing. And back then I had problems kind of to access like what she told me quite often. And at a point, because when I met her, I had already started lots of like feminist activism in Germany. I started a campaign against Europe's biggest tabloid, and did all these things. And she would say things to me like, Kristina, I'm really worried that you would end up with activist burnout. And I was like, but Silla, I'm like mid-20s. I'm so young. I can do everything. But she was so much wiser. And like every time we met, I just learned so much from her.
This is wonderful to have a mentor at your side who is like broadening your vision and enlarging your perspectives. I love one of your quotes that you recently used in an interview. You said, it's not your quote, it's the strong back, soft front, wild heart. And this, Kristina, is exactly to me what you are showcasing on a day-to-day basis. You're that kind of leader. But how would you characterize do leaders of the future have to be, no matter if they are women or men? Is it exactly that? The strong back, soft front, wild heart?
I wish, yeah. And I mean, what you just said, yes, like this quote resonates so much with me. It's not from me, as you said, it's by Brené Brown, by this incredible researcher and public intellectual. And when one of my mentees, shout out to Antonia, when she mentioned it, and she said, Kristina, I read this quote and I feel like that is you. And then I read it and I thought, that is so beautiful you're saying this. I wish that was me, and I would love to live by this understanding. and it's, to me, the kind of leaders of tomorrow really ideally embody exactly that they show, I mean, to me, this is strong back, soft front, wild heart is this combination of empathy and integrity and like sticking to your values and values of equality. Like no matter, for example, last year I spent a year, 4 days a week as an advisor at the Foreign Ministry, and like there were days when, for example, the day before, because I built a feminist network for the minister, and the day before we went to Latin America with the minister to present this network, we were working so late, like well beyond midnight in the ministry. And it was exactly the same day that in the Security Council at the United Nations, Germany, who then had April 2019 the presidency over the Security Council for this month, they brought in a resolution on women, peace and security to combat sexualized violence and conflict. And for the first time ever in the series of resolutions under women, peace and security, the US threatened with a veto. That never had happened before. So, and Germany gave in and deleted this passage that the US wanted them to delete on access to sexual and reproductive health and rights for victims of sexualized violence. So the same day that I'm working way beyond working hours to do everything that I can to do my best job for the minister and the ministry, my colleague here, Nina, my co-director, and we gave an interview being very direct and criticizing the foreign ministry for taking out this language. So that to me, I mean, that is what we're trying to do, like really show integrity. And integrity to me is like having this strong back and having your values and not shying away from kind of speaking truth to power. But in whatever you do, always do it with like maximum kindness and well-meaning in a way.
How do you, I mean, what you described seems a story that has occurred quite several times in your life. You had setbacks. There is often, even now, talking about COVID and the pandemic, we are encountering disproportionately high numbers of violence against women, of really going back to developments that we thought some were overcome. How do you deal with these setbacks? Because you're constantly confronted with them. And with kindness, maybe you know Jordan Peterson, he says about women that they are more agreeable than men. Is kindness the method to really move forward? Entirely.
Oh, this Jordan Peterson, seriously. No, so kindness is, so I wish kind of that the very basic way how all humans functioned was on kindness, like that as basis, as the basis. But being a kind person doesn't mean that anyone should ever take advantage of you, or that you would allow anyone else to bully you, or that you would allow setbacks to like put you down. That doesn't mean kindness. You can still be a kind person, but speak up and stand up, and especially set boundaries and make sure where your boundaries start and what your, when you feel that your agency is getting compromised. So being clear and outspoken and like definite about your boundaries is not an opposite of kindness. So whenever, especially in the face of injustices, we cannot let our values and what we fight for be compromised. So when setbacks happen, no matter what, like be it in like individual life or individual activism, like for me, setbacks when I did different campaigns and like, you know, all those rape threats and threats against the family and everything came in. Of course, I'm not being kind to those threatening to rape me. But I'm firm and outspoken and what I demand. But you know, this, I guess, this kindness and this like understanding of how to interact with other people then ultimately also helps with your own kind of inner peace and like how you carry yourself, and when you're like strong inside and not as like not this little kind of little plant that doesn't have roots yet, and you're not getting kind of overthrown or like pushed away by every like wind or storm, but like you're firm and you know who you are and what you want, then you can carry on despite setbacks, and because you know what your values are and what you fight for, if that makes sense.
It totally makes sense. And I would love to put the segue to you of, you once said there won't be peace without feminism. So for the plant to have roots, for peace to really manifest, we do need feminism. Can you elaborate on that? Why is that your calling?
So the sentence, there won't be peace without feminism, really is based on this knowledge and research that shows that the most significant factor towards whether a country is peaceful within its own borders or towards other countries is the level of gender equality within a country. So the level of violence and the level of oppression we exert or we do towards like women and other political minorities results in kind of overall violence that a state shows within its own borders or to others. Like when a state accepts that we kill a woman every third day, and that every single day a woman is attempted to be killed by their partner or ex-partner, like that is a society that is also accepting other levels of violence, and that is not as stable. And the figures that I just showed, that is Germany. Like people will be shocked, but that is Germany. So knowing that, it is obvious that for sustainable peace to happen anywhere and for fragility to be eradicated and to have secure governance structures around the world, that will only happen if we stop oppressing people in the household and in the private level and within structures in society. So, and I guess this became kind of my calling or my passion or whatever you name it, when I managed in a way to bring like my interest and my like very and those passion of feminist thinking activism together, because I had been doing feminist activism for several years before I co-founded the center, mainly on domestic policies. And then at the same time, I worked internationally in Colombia, New York, Myanmar, and different places, and working in those structures of international politics at the UN and different places, but also being an outspoken feminist who tries to analyze power structures wherever she goes. I realized, well, in those organizations, it's not that much better. So let's try to bring activism, especially feminist activism, into diplomatic spheres.
Truly, you did an amazing job, and maybe you can take us back in the narrative to the day that you opened the Center for Feminist Foreign Policy. You had many people who wanted to come to your opening launch, and then actually you had to turn away some because the room was simply too small. But take us back to the day and maybe give us an outlook of where do you see the center or maybe other centers in, let's say, 10 years' time?
So you're talking about the launch in Germany, which happened last weekend on the 20th, 2 years ago.
Exactly.
So very like special time of the year for us. So we had the launch in Berlin here, right in the, like literally at the heart of Berlin, 3-5 walking minutes away from the Brandenburg Gate, a beautiful location. And we had incredible speakers, like we had 4 or 5 embassies represented by their ambassadors, and we had activists speaking. Like our keynote speaker is one of the best known feminist activists in Latin America, and we had the best academics speaking on the topic, and it was just like this flower bouquet of the most beautiful and smartest and visionary human beings, and it was just like a party. And like looking back, it felt like, I mean, you know it, like those events when you put so much work into something, and then it happens and you're in the middle of it, and you feel like you're just an observer, you're not really part of it, because it just flies by and you're so nervous all the time, and it's beautiful.
Right.
That happened 2 years ago, and 10 years from now, I just hope so much that we're turning this baby, which by now we are like 3 full, like here in Berlin, my co-founder, she's in London, I'm here in Berlin. And in Berlin, we have 3 full-time people. We have like 2 part-time, and then consultants, and 4 or 5 volunteers. So we have an incredible team of like the smartest people here. But still, like, we're no way over the hill. Is that like a bad translation from German?
Yeah, you're not yet there. And particularly financially, I know that it's challenging, given the mandate that you have. It's awful.
It's so challenging. It's ridiculous almost. And I'm getting so angry every time I think about how little money female founders get. And then especially doing feminist work. So female founders, we know from statistics, for example, from the US in the corporate world, that they only, like last year, received only 2.3% of venture capital to build their organization. So had the big companies like Apple and Amazon and Uber and Twitter, name them, had they been founded by women, they would likely not exist, because they wouldn't have had the chance to build them. And like, numbers do not look better in the social entrepreneurship sector where you are based, where I am. Like, looking, for example, there's like a study called Mind the Gap about the German foundations, which show that almost all leadership positions and all executive leadership positions and all executive decisions lie with men. And sociological studies show that money and positions are given from people to people who look similar. So we do bear, like, fundraising is the biggest struggle because of the sexist structure that we're based on. But still, coming back to your 10 years question, I hope that by then we will have, I guess, unfucked this sexist like fundraising system, and we've gone beyond, and we will have built a steady and secure organization that provides a good living wage, a very good, not living wage, like a good income possibility and inspiration for many, many people.
I actually do hope that we see more centers for feminist foreign policy all across the world, because I truly believe you hit the nail on the head. Like, you are at the, like, really at the juncture of our societal development with what you have put into place. And I think that's also the reason that you are so successful with the center. I mean, apart from the hard work that you're putting in, but you are hitting a nerve. And I hope that this nerve will find its manifestation in centers all across the globe eventually. I do know that Sweden, Mexico, Canada, and some others are making major strides. But if you could formulate, let's say, a wish list, let's say somehow a fairy can fulfill wishes, what would they be? Like, what would you, for, let's say, the next year, wish for, given where your center and where your programmatic work stands right now?
We're currently trying to build several new programs. So we would love, and we are with all of what I'm going to mention, like, let's see what I'm going to mention, but we're already in conversations about different things. And ideally, like next year, we would have a program on climate justice, working closely with Fridays for Future. And we're currently doing a study on pushing back the pushback, financed by the German and the Finnish Foreign Ministry, on the sheer unprecedented international attacks on women's and human rights. And we would love to turn this into a bigger program and hire more people, where we're also currently trying different fundraising strategies. So I'd love for the center for next year to have like these well-resourced programs working on like these most important topics on human rights protection, on climate justice. That would kind of be my wish for next year for the center specific.
Brilliant. Now I'm wondering, because you also said at one point in time that what is the most important cause is fighting for equality. So many are associating feminist foreign policy with only putting women first. And so there is this notion of, but what about the others? Don't you have to take along all the others? And I'm curious about your comment there, because there are critics, of course, that say, already enshrined in the title feminist, you're leaving out half of the globe and that can't be the policy. And yet you are so differentiated about it. And of course, have a very, very concise point of view on that one. Could you tell us more about feminist foreign policy? What how to describe it?
Such a good question, because as you rightly said, many people would say, like very often, one of the first reactions that I get is, so you want more female ambassadors? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, that is like a tiny, tiny part of what we're doing, because obviously representation matters, right? It matters what people are in power positions, because we need to diversify all circles of power, because we cannot, like, policies, no matter in what area, they're only as good as the people behind them are diverse, because we can only address each area of policy making adequately if diverse people with diverse lived experiences can influence those policies. Because, for example, if we one example is like during Corona, for example, if you have a group of people where there are no women involved, and especially not women who have any experience of male violence in their life, and most people have experienced, like most women have experienced male violence. If you have a group of only men making decisions about the pandemic, for example, immediately we think about, okay, let's be in lockdown. No one is allowed to leave the house anymore because we need to protect society. And yes, that makes sense, but that only makes sense until you realize that the home is the most dangerous place for women in this world. Yeah. So once you have people like women in decision-making bodies influencing those decisions, they would say, but wait, I've experienced something extremely dangerous in the home, so we need to address this as well. So when you exclude all those different lived experiences, policies will just not be good enough, and they will only increase inequalities. So feminist foreign policy, it's feminism in foreign policy, or feminism in any area, is really about analyzing power. So it looks at every field, and it looks like who has power to make decisions, and whose needs do we address, and whose voices are being silenced. Like, that are always the key questions. And then you can use this mindset and look at all areas. And for example, very recently, we're currently finishing work for another ministry here in Berlin that has been instrumental in the COVID response. And together with a group of other 4 feminist intellectuals, feminist thinkers, and feminist leaders of other organizations, we analyzed the work of this ministry to see if their COVID response, if it had any blind spots, and if it, through blind spots, then increased inequalities. And of course, we found many of those blind spots. Like, think about homeless people, or think about people with psychological or physical disabilities, and think about all those what we understand as minority groups in our society. If you not have an understanding of what their needs are, and if you never hear their needs because they never make it to powerful positions, then your policies, what you come up with, they will fail those people, and you will put them in an even more marginalized position. So this is really what feminism is about. Feminism, also in foreign policy, is about analyzing power, and by this, it will benefit in the end, ultimately, all those who are currently don't have access to the share of power that they should have. So it will ultimately benefit the whole society, because it will make society more equitable and fair and just.
What a beautiful assertion. Yes, agreed. Kristina, I have to put you to a challenge now. Yeah. I will give you sentences, like the first half of a sentence, and I would like to ask you to spontaneously conclude the sentence, or complete it, basically. So let's try. If nothing comes to mind, nothing comes to mind. It's fine. So the first sentence would be: the best advice that I ever received was...
The best advice. Okay, 2 come to my mind.
Cool.
One is and in turn is one that I always give to others as well, to never listen to naysayers. No matter what you do, whenever you do something that is not in line with what we've always done before, people will make fun of you, and most people will tell you, well, that doesn't work, that doesn't make sense, don't waste your time, like you're making yourself ridiculous. So don't listen to naysayers, first of it. And the second one comes from a bag. Like I first saw it on a bag a friend of mine carried around.
Cool. We will want that bag afterwards, I'm sure. Yes, tell us. So,
and it said, carry yourself with the self-confidence of a mediocre white man. And it means that because of how our society works, so our society, like if we, I don't want to get too much into it, but I also want to recommend a book that I'm currently reading. It's called The First Political Order, and How Sex Shapes Security and Governance Worldwide by Hudson et al. And so this book pretty much is about how thousands of years ago, when within the household, we decided to oppress women and have like women as slaves pretty much, and men have the power, how this first political order as such then developed into the architectures of society, and that societies that oppress women also have oppressive structures in society and are insecure. So knowing how societies developed, and that within those societies the standard was for men to be in influential positions, and as such be constantly overrepresented in media and in history books. Like, who writes history? Those who have the power to define history write history. And again, that's not been the whole of society. So men have been overrepresented in all positions of power in history and media and everywhere. So for boys growing up in such society means that they understand that what they say matters, that they get this confidence from early on, that they matter, their ideas matter. And women instead, they get a very different signal. They know from early on that what they say will never be as important as what the boys say. And studies, like literally today I'm writing a speech which talks about it. So I found this study that said that boys and girls as early as kindergarten age think that brilliance is a male trait, because this is how we are socialized. This is what we see represented in everywhere. We see men as experts. So in a society that tells us from early on that men are experts and women's voices don't matter, men have this confidence and women don't. So carry yourself with exactly that confidence of a mediocre white man means that don't listen to this socialization, but try to get this mindset that is given to boys. You should have that same mindset.
Fascinating. Next sentence that I would love you to complete is, if I ever go to prison, then for.
If I ever go to prison, then for taking away money that systems and people have that use it to do devastating and harmful things for our environment and human beings.
Valid cause. A bit of a morbid question, but nevertheless it's very telling. How would you complete, they will write on my tombstone?
I don't know why this came to my mind, but
tell us, whatever.
I mean, that would be an honor, because I would be in line with incredible women. And maybe, nevertheless, she persisted.
Oh, wonderful.
Something very kind. I mean, which was said. Was it first said about Elizabeth Warren, or was it about? Okay, after this I'll look it up.
Yeah, me too. Nevertheless, she persisted is beautiful. Wow, and fitting.
Yeah, but there were great. There are huge and great women, that this sentence is connected with. So if they were in mine, that would be like a huge honor, and I would be lying in this grave and just be so humbled.
And Kristina, they wouldn't mind. I'm sure they would be honored. Come on, I'm certain they would support this. Another sentence that is hopefully very easy to complete. When I check into a hotel, I write down in the field of occupation.
That's actually always difficult. I write down something.
For me too.
Feminist, activist, and entrepreneur.
Excellent. Okay. And then another fun question. I cannot sit still when I listen to. So what gets you up and moving?
It's reggaeton, but it's feminist reggaeton.
Oh.
So the Latin American reggaeton, like the traditional one, is incredibly misogynist and sexist, but there are wonderful feminist musicians as well. Who also, like, there's feminist and non-sexist reggaeton as well, so that gets me up and moving.
It's wonderful. Tell me as well, I look up to. Who do you look up to?
Oh my gosh, countless of people, women feminists. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez,
yes, AOC,
Rupi Kaur, and Angela Merkel, and Jacinda Ardern, and Lema Wobi, and Madeleine Rees, and Sana Mandel, like so many.
Great.
Like,
standing on the shoulders of giants, right?
Giants,
that's what we are benefiting from. Okay, last one of this sort, and then we go into a one word and an association by you, but still one sentence. I'm really good at ... but I never want to do it again. Is there something?
That is such a good question. I like the first part, and then
okay, just focus on the first. It's fine. You don't need to complete it with.
I'm really good at table football. Oh wait, no, yeah, I'm really good at table football. Well, I thought I'm really good at table football, and then what I never want to do again is so that earlier this year in February, we organized an event at the Munich Security Conference on feminist foreign policy, and like us as like feminist activists and feminist actors being at the Munich Security Conference, that is already kind of disrupting the space in a way. And we organized the very first event on feminist foreign policy. Cool. But then in the evening, there's this tradition that at the Munich Security Conference, there's this like big table football, like foosball tournament.
Yeah.
So in my boldness and carrying myself like a mediocre white man, I said to the chief operating officer of the Munich Security Conference, who I like very much, I said, I'm really good. Like, if like you should be on my team, I said to him. And he, I think, was the second, like he came second with his team partner the year before. But I was like, I'm so good. Like last year I won against like state ministers here in Berlin and like others, so I can do this. And then we sucked so much. I mean, we won against NATO, okay.
How symbolic.
Right. But then after that we lost. So I thought I'm really, let's rephrase it. I thought I'm really good at table football, but I never want to play with the chief operating officer at the Munich Security Conference again, because I felt I wasn't good enough, and I felt bad.
No, carry yourself with the self-confidence of a mediocre white man.
Right.
I'm sure it's all fine. I'm sure he would totally vouch for you another time. Okay, Kristina, we have a couple of minutes left, and I want to give you one word and just tap your brain on what comes to mind first. So it's not about sentences, but just give me your idea. I would like to hear about Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Icon, inspiration, and huge worries about our access and over our own body.
Thank you. What comes to your mind with climate change?
Anger, urgency, and this problem is overriding most others.
What comes to your mind when we are talking utopia?
There's no progress in society without utopia. people often say to me, Kristina, like, you're so naive and that's so utopian what you're saying. And I say, yes, of course it is. Like, a feminist world is so utopian because it doesn't exist. And what else would we fight for than for a utopia where everyone is freer and more secure?
What comes to your mind when I say Unidas?
Unidas, the network that I built for the minister and the foreign ministry, a first step towards feminist foreign policy within the German Foreign Office.
Cool. What comes to your mind when I say success?
Aligning. What really comes to my mind is this beautiful quote by Rupi Kaur in her book Milk and Honey, which goes, let me try. Okay, maybe.
Okay, let's try.
It goes somehow along the lines, of course, I'm craving success and I'm trying to be successful, but I'm not trying to be successful for myself, but I'm trying to be successful for everyone else, to gain as much as milk and honey so that they can succeed, or something.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Whoever out there doesn't yet have the book, please get it. It's just so inspirational. Speaking about books, and this is my last question, tapping your brain, dear Kristina. What about what happens to your thoughts when I say your book?
Oh gosh, I'm like, oh shit, I should. I mean, I still have a couple of months to write it, but I would have wished to be further already, as we always do, I guess. But currently, I'm mainly focusing on reading still, because that's not going to be a good book if I have not read a lot before, like, to base my ideas on. I mean, as you said before, we're standing on the shoulders of giants, so it wouldn't make sense to know everything from those giants, because I'm not reinventing the wheel, I'm trying to develop it further. But there's so many other amazing people who came before me, and I want to acknowledge them.
Sure, and you will give, and you are giving your unique perspective. And I guess to all of you out there who are following us today and then later on, check out Kristina's Instagram account. She is truly an avid reader. There are fantastic recommendations out there. She's putting her finger on issues that are painful at times, open wounds, I would say. You're calling journalists, you're calling rappers, you're calling politicians, you're calling media tycoons to responsibility for what they are saying. And I thank you for that. I thank you for many that don't dare to do that and that wouldn't be as bold as you often are. Last thing, Kristina, before I let you go, do you have one piece of advice that you can give to all of the ladies and girls out there that you still would like to share? I mean, we have touched upon so much. You can also reiterate one of the things that we have already said, but maybe there is still some thought that you want to leave us with.
I think, I mean, that applies for everyone, but I guess even more so for political minorities, and of which, like, women is the biggest group, that we are given very often the idea that we are only allowed to raise our voice and voice our opinions once we're an expert, and once we have a PhD and we've like studied for many years and like we've done research on things, and it's very easy to delegitimize someone's ideas, kind of ridiculing them and telling them, yeah, but like, you're not experienced, and like, who are even you? Like, don't buy into this. Of course, like, opinions and what anyone says should be informed and most importantly based on facts and research. But it is okay to at the same time raise your voice and still develop your voice. Like, these processes, they're allowed to happen at the same time. So don't wait for calling out injustices.
Ladies and gentlemen, the formidable, admirable Kristina Lunz, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And see you soon, I hope.
Thank you so much. Thank you for all this love. Thank you.
Kristina, bye. And thanks to all the listeners. See you next time. Bye bye.